Hey, welcome back to Make More Music. The podcast connects people to music and one another. My name's Chris and I'm a board-certified music therapist. If you're new here, you'll find out that I think that a more musical world is a better world. And I love to highlight all the awesome things that people are doing in a variety of careers in the music industry, even in the middle of all of this coronavirus craziness. So today I've got a really interesting one with you for someone who is just hard to describe. She does so much. Marya Stark considers herself a bard, a poet, a storyteller, and ultimately she is all of those things and a songwriter. And I want you to go check out her music, Marya Stark, wherever you get your music. I want you to go check out her recent YouTube videos. They're all linked in the bio. And then if you're fascinated by hearing about music and healing and medical QiGong practices and wellness through music, I would love if you'd go check out all of her different pages. Everything is in the show notes and we go really down into the rabbit hole. So I hope you enjoy this interesting one with Marya Stark. Marya, I'm glad we've got connected. You do a lot, and you kind of just not only do a lot, you are a lot. You embody all the things you do. I feel like you're portraying a very authentic self that you're wanting to reach out and connect with people with. But before we go down in the rabbit hole, I've got some rapid fire. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. On whatever you listen to music, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, whatever, what is the last track you played?
Oh my gosh. The last track I played was the last song on the new Fiona Apple record, which came out last week, which was a refreshing madhouse sonic explosion of Fiona's most unhinged songs I've ever heard.
That's awesome. It's a good time for some music that's been cooking for a while to come out. I feel like a lot of people are putting a lot out, which is awesome. But I think it's even cooler to see the things that are coming out naturally at this time like that too. So you can be as philosophical or you can be as simple as you want to take this. But if you were an instrument, what would you be?
A bone flute.
Why so?
A bone flute. Well, I see myself as one who likes to pick up the bones of my old selves and carve my songs from them. And so if I were to be an instrument, I would be a flute carved from a bone, making beautiful music out of my dying old identities.
I like it. I like it. That's a good one. So along those lines of kind of Fiona Apple and staying fresh and inspired and creative, what has been inspiring you recently? Doesn't have to be music related at all.
Whoa, what has been inspiring me? I've been really inspired recently by Wim Hof, who is known as the Iceman, who teaches about the power of the breath and cold water training and ice training to open the cardiovascular system and go beyond what science used to believe was possible for human beings in terms of how long we could hold our breath, how deep we could dive underwater, and how long we could survive in the cold without having our core temperature drop. He just broke through all these records using really simple but powerful methods of training his body to become this superhuman and strong. And so in the time of quarantine, I've been studying his practices and just pushing my own body to beyond what I had currently been comfortable in doing, because I want to know what it's like to be really strong and have my cardiovascular system open up beyond what it would do if I just let it do its own thing.
That's interesting. Yeah, I've heard of his work and what he's been doing. I think this transition's good into the next one. It can be related to that or not. What is a pro tip? And you do a lot of coaching. So what's a pro tip, something that somebody can do and put in place in their life that you practice that you feel like is just right there?
Well, one of my pro tips is the use of the voice to locate yourself in the moment. So if I notice if I'm walking through my day and my mind's racing and I'm feeling anxious, or I'm just doing a lot of stuff, which even at home is possible. I notice that if I just take one moment to pause and just hum a little bit to my system as a way to coax myself into the present moment and just coax a little more savoring of the present moment, that the voice, it's like original medicine. It's right there. Voice can just send one tone right to the center of my being and help me land back right in my body. And that is something that I
Mm,
come back to multiple times a day. It's an anchor point for me.
that's great. And I know we're going to dive more into that with your new course coming up later. So, next, this is a total 180. What is your go-to junk food?
That's a great question. If I'm honest, my favorite thing to make when I'm just feeling snacky is quesadilla.
Nice.
I love some cheesy, crispy tortilla situations.
So something that's been changing our lives at our house recently is I don't know where my wife found this little pro tip out, but instead of butter on quesadillas or grilled cheese or anything like that, she taught me, and I'm doing during all this quarantine, I've done this like every day, mayonnaise on the bread.
Ooh,
Fry that. It is so good. So,
ooh.
so, so, so try that on your next quesadilla. It's awesome.
There you go. Pro tip.
We did quesadillas like that about a week ago, and it was very good. So just a little bit of mayonnaise.
All right.
Um, Lastly, before we get into your whole backstory, who is a person, a project, or an organization that you feel like deserves being lifted up with a shout out?
Oh gosh, there are so many um, people in my life doing amazing things. My partner Bajun is doing amazing things. He's teaching a 4 month online qigong course right now for free. He like put it out there
Wow.
to the world, and it's a preparation for a year-long qigong instructor training. And he's like, once the pandemic hit, he's like, all right, we gotta lift the people up. So I lift him up. He's an amazing human being, who's teaching online classes around yoga and meditation and Taoist mysticism and qigong and martial arts, and doing it, a lot of it, out of just the generosity of his heart, because he's a minister and he loves to share brilliant knowledge with the people. So I want to just give him props because he's been inspiring me lately so much.
Well, I feel like you've done a great job of teasing a lot of the things that I wanted to get right into with you. So to start to start things off, I want you to go way back as early as you can remember. What are some of your first musical memories?
Wow. My first musical memories. Well, I always loved to sing. My mom says I
Hmm.
was singing before I was talking, and I'd say that my earliest memories of music have to do with singing in church because I grew up Catholic. And
Hmm.
so they were singing these, Catholic worship songs, and there was something really powerful about hearing everyone sing together. And it wasn't every song, but there were some songs that just moved the
Mm.
winds. It just like it connected to that thing that I thought they were talking about. They're like, oh, this
Mhm.
must be the reason we're all here. But it was something about the music that did it for me. It wasn't really the teachings or the ritual of the church, it was the song, it was the sound, it was the together. And I remember becoming enamored with melody and the voice, and really enamored with the feeling I could find myself in moments when song would just take over everything. It was those
Mm.
moments where, and I know you know what I mean. I think later in my life it happened more when I was in choir, and in middle school and high school I was in a lot of choirs, and really amazing choirs. And all state choirs and competitive choirs, and there was like 200 of us just
A
singing
wall. Yeah.
these walls and these complex chords, and there was something so like ensorceling about it. Like it was just like there was nowhere
Yeah.
else to be. It was like every fiber of my being was all about being a part of that, and there it was cathartic, and it was so decadent. This is like the flavors of aliveness that could be felt. And so I think most of my early experiences with music were being dumbfounded by those moments
Hmm.
and trying to understand them philosophically, trying to put myself in the middle of them, and just being teased by them forward in my evolution.
Yeah. So as a young person, you're taking all this in and deciding, what are you going to do? What's this journey you're going to take? So how did you make that path to getting closer to where you are now, of being so central to everything that you do?
Mm.
What were the steps along? Because I know you have a music therapy degree, and what other trainings and formal and informal things did you do with music past those high school choirs and things like that?
Yeah, well, I had like heard about music therapy, I think my junior year of college,
Hmm.
and it must have planted a seed in me. I wasn't consciously thinking I was going to be a music therapist, but I had heard about it from a friend of mine who applied to the music therapy program at Chapman. And it's so funny. I only applied to two schools, one state school and Chapman. And then and it was like in the back of my mind, I was like, oh yeah, music therapy sounds cool, because was learning about psychology and philosophy, and I was
Hmm.
like, oh yeah, that's cool. And I went to Chapman again, not consciously intending to study music therapy, but knowing that it was something I was curious about. And I took the intro to music therapy course my first semester, and it had one of those come to Jesus moments where
Hmm.
it was like, we have arrived at the beginning of the path of the rest of my life.
Yeah.
It was like everything that I had, previously learned about had prepared me for this moment, and we were going down the rabbit hole, and this was the initiatory journey to the reason I came to earth. And it was very much like that, and I felt like learning about the philosophy and the evolution of consciousness related to the music of the spheres and all this esoteric stuff, and then applied practical medical stuff. And it just, for me, became this enriching experience of learning about human development and emotional literacy and all of this stuff. So I did do the music therapy program, and my muses were really strong inside of that container. And towards the end of college, I began to learn about Eastern medicine, and I learned
Hmm.
about medical qigong therapy. And I
Hmm.
ended up, after my internship, being invited to attend a 2-year medical qigong program and learning about Chinese energetic medicine and meditation. And it almost like that study, um, for me, started to answer some of the questions I was having in my music therapy program, because I was getting really into like, well, what's in I wanted to know about other medical philosophies besides allopathic
Hmm.
medicine, and kind of, where music therapy as a in the United States, as like a licensing process, is very much connected to the Western medical principles, which are effective in certain ways. But I was having a lot of hunger to go deeper, and and the medical qigong and Chinese medicine started filling out some of those places where my curiosity, like I wanted to know about subtle bodies, and I wanted to know about energy flow in the body, and go deeper into emotions and consciousness and psychic phenomenon, and developing intuition, and learning about different ways to relate to the song of creation and the song of the body. And so that process really opened some mythic doors for me as a writer, and as someone who just got really curious about how people work. which then just opened the door further into studies of esoteric Buddhism and looking at, for me personally, going into the studies of energetic psychology and female energetic psychology and female energetic anatomy and womb wisdom and womb healing. And then I got really into compassionate communication and relational health. So it kind of took me back to, what are, I think, like, the door that music therapy opened for me was like, wow, people are wounded. I'm wounded,
Yeah.
and music is supporting me and holding myself out and connecting back to something greater than me. And so then I really got interested in, like, why are humans wounded? What is the study of
Mm.
woundology? And how can I come to know myself more? And then for me, it's just like it went out to the edges of the universe, and it came right back to just our primary relationships with our family constellation, and just looking at everything in between. Like, how does this affect society? Where is this in our ancestry? Where is this in our lineage, and in how our cultures evolved? Where are these very personal, relational, unhealed wounds manifesting as cultural trances and cultural
Mm.
patterns? and I was that, and so that's where I'm hanging out now.
Yeah, I feel like I'm hit with a brick wall of 1,000 things that I want to talk about. That's so interesting. And especially, I think it's interesting, those big cultural, societal concerns, because now we're faced in a time of pandemic and crisis where a lot of things have come to a head. And you've been practicing in this way, talking about your concept albums and your courses for a long time. I'm wondering if, before we can get into what you're doing now, for a music therapist or for a musician in general that had just heard a lot of those things, but has lived in, like you said, a very allopathic, a very Western centric medical lens. Give me like some broad sweeping knowledge, because I am pretty ignorant to the in depth, even though a lot of the buzzwords weren't unfamiliar.
Uh-huh. So like some basic principles of
I
uh
don't even know what I don't know, so you can go into whatever you think is important.
to know about the difference like, as a music therapist, what are some magical things that I've discovered in, like, the realms of energetic medicine?
Yeah, let's see. I'm just saying, from starting with comparing where you kind of had that divergence at the end of internship and you went into the medical qigong path because you
Mhm.
were recognizing some things. What are those things that you were recognizing, so
Aha.
that maybe somebody else who was going into uh realizing dissonances with their practice, or a musician realizing dissonances with the way that they're connecting with other people? uh,
Yeah. Okay. Well, what I noticed in terms of, like, music therapy, first of all, is an awesome degree, and it was such a great, full, enriching experience. And it's working on building relationship to people and building
mhm,
bridges based on body language and tracking behavioral changes over time, and synergy that can get created, in harmony that can get created, and music in kind of this symbolic way to build bridges. But then there's all of these sort of frameworks of how we're tracking progress, based on what
mhm,
our clinical goals are. um, what I noticed for me is that I had been using music and songwriting as a therapeutic process for myself personally, to just process my
mhm.
past experiences, to as a lens to get to know myself more. And in doing that, I started to uncover what I'm going to call, like, my unconscious patterns, like my unconscious emotional patterns and behavioral patterns. And so,
Okay.
and using songwriting as a lens to learn about that stuff with me, I was having this feedback loop with my own music of taking myself through music therapy processes. Um, And so I wanted to learn more about why those unconscious patterns were there, and
Mm,
why I was seeing certain themes show up in my songs. So when I started studying energetic medicine, what they focus on are principles of how we form patterns of relating based on emotional and psychological injuries, and sometimes physical
mm,
injuries as well. But for me, they were emotional and psychological injuries, and you can see certain patterns that developed based on particular kinds of core wounding that could happen
mm,
in someone's early childhood development. And so they were really looking at um, how certain injuries start manifesting in the
mm,
patterns of how energy runs through the body, and the kind of patterned thoughts that people have, and what kind of pattern emotions they have even, and then like survival strategies, and relational patterns. So the energetic medicine perspective and the study of like uh, patterns in how they manifest in the body in that way, I wasn't seeing any of that thoroughly discussed in the music therapy programs that I had been aware of. Like I had to go into this whole other process of learning going
hmm.
more deeply into psychology, and not just from a Western view of psychology, but really
Correct.
looking at
Yeah.
psychology from a body perspective. And Chinese medicine is really cool because they're looking at the body and the energy body, which is kind of like a double body. They're looking at the physical tissues of the body, and then they're also looking at these rivers of how energy moves within the physical tissues. And they're addressing
Mm,
both of those things. And they're addressing um, other layers of being that really connect to the idea that things go wrong physically with with a body,
mm,
sometimes in relationship to emotional processes that are backed up, based on not having had the kind of support in different times of the life to integrate really intense emotional experiences. And we kind of cover that in music therapy. We're like, oh, of course we're using music to let people emotionally process and stuff, but I was finding the language and the
mhm.
framework to be so deep and useful,
Yeah.
and kind of catalytic, like catalyzing my perspective and view of my own healing journey in ways that were so transformative. Like it was the art of personal transformation of my mind, body, and spirit. um, and so I hope that answers some of your questions.
Totally. Yeah. I think it is interesting that we, I'm using the royal we in music therapy schools, because of the nature of higher education and things like that, are kind of just dump a lot of, here's all the scientific air quotes information we have.
Hmm.
Then we tell these students, you know enough, go talk to your legislator, go talk to an administrator at a place and get them to buy into this. And then you can work with these people and do these things that you sort of understand. When I, I feel like the deeper I get into music therapy, the less I tell people like, oh, I know that music can do this. It's like, well, I've seen this and I know music does this. And it's like you said, you start uncovering more and more and more, and you're like, it's so complex,
Hmm.
and it is to be, I think that's one of the hardest things about being a music therapist, is it requires all of this self introspection and looking at all of these deep issues, and then realizing I have to go into a facility maybe that couldn't care less about this journey that
Hmm.
I've been on. And they're just like, yes, this person likes Hank Williams, and that's great too. You have to work with what is in front of you, but um, it's it's cool to see how your own process of diving into that, and kind of hearing how I see what you're meaning now by the archetypal patterns evolving, and So what is involved when using some energetic medicine? What are some of the practices? I know you mentioned meditation, but what is some of the therapy and process of growing and healing through some of those wounds look like?
Well, yeah. Well, there's there's like incredible qigong practices, which qigong literally means energy skill. So
Okay.
ways to practice moving the energy within the body through gentle movement and like a combination of movement and mindfulness and gentle breathing. And these practices have been really helpful. I've done some beautiful work in combining some of those practices with all of my creative practices, that were already
Hmm.
there with music, with songwriting and journaling and improv music. But I find though that when I move back and forth between them, they start to inform each other. And this
Yes.
spaciousness opens up. And for me, there's a goal of getting my own mind into a state where I'm relaxed in my body and my nervous system is calm, and that I'm having this ability to have extra attention to, and like almost like an extra listening for what's the deep spirit of the moment want to reveal
Hmm.
to me about myself or about something I'm thinking about. And then I can take that into song and it shows me, like, because I'm
Yeah,
allowing my
absolutely.
mind stream to have a place to go in. And then now I'm seeing what's in my mind, and then I can go into my practice and address, like, oh, well, these are the emotions that I've experienced, and I can do specific practices that can support me. So I think it's been a great combination with all of the music therapy stuff to work with sound, even like the sound of my own voice, and in
Hmm.
specific ways to vibrate different organs at different times. In Chinese medicine, they have the organs are connected to different balanced and imbalanced emotional states, and they
Hmm.
use the voice and other vibrational visioning methods to help support the ecosystem or the song of how the organs all sing together, and
Hmm.
bring them back into harmony. So just even having an understanding of that and getting to work on, like, say, repressed rage, as an imbalance in my
Hmm.
liver, I can start looking at, like, oh, well, what are some sounds and visualizations I can do to bring liver health more clearly into balance, or change my diet up. And then that can reveal, what are the repressed issues that were connected to that rage, and how can I process that creatively, and then learn about a deeper map of my own consciousness and soul, through playing dancing with all of these different principles. And what I would say about, like, you're so funny when you were talking about, like, oh, we're on this, like, deep introspective mythical journey as music therapists, because we're like, oh, we're using music as the bridge between all of the worlds, like
Hmm.
that's kind of the task they charge us all with right through the door. And then we're like in the medical industry, which is like
Exactly.
a strange world, but yeah, we're like on this, like, deep spiritual pursuit. Like, something they don't want to talk about in the realms of science is how deeply mystical and spiritual the journey is of being a human being,
Hmm.
and trying to locate ourselves on our own spiritual journey. And music does that whether we're trying to or not. Like, that's the game with music. I think that's why it's so
Yes. Yeah.
powerful, is
It's
in
very
modality.
revealing. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
just, like, it hits the heart of the matter. It goes beyond rational view of 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 what religion is or spirituality. It connects people at the heart of their humanness. And so how do we bring that to the center of the conversation?
So interesting. Well, you brought up something else that I think would be a good place to switch to, and that's your music. And it's cool to hear how that process is beginning of a kind of full circle of all of the introspection and all of that. So tell me a little bit about your new project. You
Mm.
have Stargazer, and you have you're working with, it seems like Elijah Ray is one of your close friends, as you've already said. And then you all are working on another new project coming up. So walk me through, tell me a little bit about Stargazer. The video is like captivating.
Oh,
So tell me about that and kind of the journey through that song, and what, if you want to be vulnerable for it, what's going on in that song, and
awesome.
walking through that. And then we'll get into your course that's coming up too.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Stargazer is the first song off of an album coming out called Sapphire. And Sapphire is a concept album that it's been done for a little while. We're just kind of getting her ready to come through the birth gate and out into the world so that she can sprinkle her magic everywhere. And this album, for me, it began as a very introspective journey to follow what I would say was this part of myself that was trying to get my attention. And that part of
Mm,
myself was trying to get my attention, and it was revealing through very mystical experiences I was having in my dreams and in synchronicities I was having with different people in my life, and different kind of like life force energies that were trying to get online in my body, um, and
mm,
and get me back into my center. And it was a very intense journey. Life force energy can kind of crack the walls of who you think you are, especially when she wants to rush a river of aliveness through places that were dead. And so those places
mm,
came alive in me and really revealed a lot of parts of myself that I had been hiding or disowning. Um, and a lot of that is there in the album. And so I'm excited to share that journey. This album I made with my friend Joshua Penman, who's an incredible orchestrator and arranger and producer. And it was just such a joy to create this very cinematic orchestral piece with him. And Stargazer is the first one. And so in the song Stargazer, again, Sapphire is it's a concept album. So there's a storyline that's running through, and it's about the chase of the muse. It's about this
mm,
thing. It's like, I think for me, it's the piece that I needed to write to express my like soul's romance with chasing that feeling that music brings me to. That is like
mm,
God, that is the beloved, that is like the holy thing that my life is like throwing me towards with every breath. It was like it was this album, it was like a devotional love song to that. And
mm,
Stargazer is a song about, in the story, and I'm playing this all out in a story about um, this like mystical love that is like from another world that is trying to come to this world and help us remember about this other magical world. And Stargazer is this moment where the worlds are colliding, and where like she is waking up on planet Earth and is like, oh,
mm,
I'm here, and I'm like remembering this other song, but I'm here on planet Earth where it's kind of weird and there's pandemics going on and it's like
mm,
crazy town. But some part of my soul remembers a music that is beyond what's happening here. And it's so this song is about like her calling out to the beloved, to the one who will like is singing that song back to her.
mm.
And so that's what's going on in this song. And it's like a love song with this like divine mystical muse. And it's a song about, yeah, just the return to the ecstatic nature of being. And how do we do that, um, through this like chasing this longing outside of ourselves, but also finding that mystical music as a temple and refuge that is already within us.
I love the thoughtfulness, and not to say that you wouldn't be thoughtful, but I love the thoughtfulness of the craft of this concept album and the craft of everything that goes with it, because the visuals, the cinematic that goes along with it, the choreography, it pulls you in and it makes you think, I want to know what is going on here. And I know that your life and your mission of helping people connect with that is authentic to you. So with Elijah Ray, you're getting ready to open this course, and tell me about how that relates to what we've talked already, and kind of what is going on in this course that you're starting.
Totally. Well, Elijah is someone who I admire and adore and has known his music for many years. I actually met him right after I was finishing my music therapy internship and traveling up to California. I discovered his music and I was like, "Oh, this homie, he knows the song. He knows the song that I'm talking about."
Mm,
Because he was a sound healer and his, we definitely had a bond around this magical song creation story, and so a great incredible ally. And a couple years ago, I he was offering some vocal Jedi empowerment training, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to be offering this training to some folks, and so I would love to be held, in a container where someone is helping me get to my next level. As a
mm,
coach, I love receiving coaching as much as I like to offer it. And I know when I'm receiving coaching, I always go to my next game, and I'm just a much better instrument to support other people with. And so I
mm,
was so excited to work with him. And then I got into the training spell with him, and his methodology of working with the voice in a mystical way to like touch the edges of your soul was so inspiring to me, and it really transformed my relationship with singing and music in a way that was very just like integrative. It helped me to integrate um, my fascination with energy medicine and qigong, and it helped to really build some bridges within me. And so I let him know about all that it was happening, and I actually was had a lot of ideas as well because of my training in medical qigong and in music therapy. And so we started, playing back and forth with a lot of ideas, and developing some of the methods further. And I started teaching some of these methods in my classes and developing them more in my online classes and my songwriting classes and my Muse classes. And so for a couple of years, we've just been sort of steeping in like what are the most fun, most like
mm,
creative ways that we can use the voice to play with coming into our core, getting really present, playing with our own personal mythologies, developing our own relationship to leadership, to speaking truth, to being heart centered and open to the experience of the song of creation. And we have developed this method into the core vocal core resonance method, and we're having our first 6-week online course starting May 10th, where we're going to be sharing these methods and these tools with a group of soul journeyers, to play with the voice as this location agent. Like I said at the beginning of this call, what's the one of my best tools is throughout the day of staying in the game is just bringing my voice back to my body, getting connected to the center of my body, getting connected with my voice to the unique vibration of my spirit as it runs through this instrument, connecting with the cells, connecting with the song of my environment, and opening my spatial awareness to really be present for what's going on and how can I show up to the task at hand. So we're going to be playing with the voice in a lot of really cool ways to develop, a whole toolkit for leadership, for confidence, developing more joy, presence, groundedness, playfulness, to develop the imagination, and to really just get our instruments tuned up to sing the song that we came to Earth to sing, whatever that is.
mm. And to do it within a group of other people who are on that same journey, which,
Totally.
how cool. Yeah, yeah. How cool. So what can someone who's interested in that, or someone that's heard what you've been saying, what can they expect from being involved in this course?
Well, I would say that you can expect that we're going to have a lot of fun. Number one, we're a blast. So we're going to have a blast. Number two, you're going to learn some really powerful ways to look at your voice as a mirror, to work with your voice and with your experience of your voice in your lifetime as a mirror for your own heart, for your own spirit, and also as a tool for becoming more of who you are. And these methods are really about supporting you to be your full self, to be fully online with your being, with your spirit, and bringing more of your gifts and cultivating more of your genius so you can bring yourself forward. So you can expect that we're going to be in a really creative, supportive container that is really there to get you here with us on planet Earth, to show up in your full self and your full magic, and let your magic out of the box, let it out of the bottle. It's time that I think, as humans, maybe we've been waiting, maybe some of us have been waiting to let our magic fully out, and time's up. There's no more waiting. This is the time to let it out of the bottle. So we'll be doing some bottle opening magic.
That's awesome. Well, before we get into kind of the last couple questions, definitely want to hit up a couple of different ideas. And that is, aside from also just reaching out and contacting you, for the people that want more resources, that were stirred by some of the different things that you were talking about, where would you point people to?
Well, I have a Facebook group called the Rose Bard Arts, Courting the Muse. And in that Facebook group, you can join. It's an open forum. I'm posting games there, creative games. I'll be posting other resources about sound and the voice and all of the things that I'm interested in mused by. So that's a nice forum to come get a taste and get your creativity on. I also have a website called the Rose Bard Academy, rosebardacademy.com. And that's a place where where my online courses and retreats and workshops are posted. So if you're wanting more resources of things you want to come study with me, that's a place to come connect. And I do workshops on songwriting, on muse craft, on vocal empowerment, and also working with people on developing relationship to their muse, to their creativity, to their genius. I work with women as well, and working on womb healing and listening to intuition and developing female leadership skills. So my website, my Facebook group, those are great places to come connect and drop into further resources.
Awesome. We will definitely connect to all of that kind of things. Any other specific things or places you want to plug to before I get into kind of the last way where we wrap it up?
Oh, these are the places, these
Okay,
are the
good.
places
I'll link
to come
directly to the class
to
too.
come taste the stream of what's coming in. Those are the magic playgrounds, the virtual playgrounds.
Good. I like it. So I always say, when you're waxing your surfboard, to surf the net. So
Hey, there you go.
there you go. That's nice in California for you too. So we don't have too many waves here in Kentucky, unfortunately.
Not right now.
But not now,
Not
anyways.
now.
Well,
We'll see in 100 years what's going on in Kentucky.
exactly. Well, I think this is pretty evident in all that you do, but I'd love if you'd parse it out even just as plainly as you can. Is for the podcast, I always love to ask both how and why do you inspire others to make more music?
How I do it is I inspire people to make more music by uh, inviting them to do it,
Mm,
by inviting people to play games of music making, by sharing more music and normalizing a creative process, by sharing my own creative process and demystifying it. Those are some of
mm,
the ways that some of the hows. The why do I do it? I do it because I'm completely devoted to the muse, and
mm.
she demands it. She demands that I do it because it's the nectar of creation for me. And so I have to. There's nothing else I'm allowed to do.
Absolutely. I think it's evident in just your authenticity and all that you do. So I want you to take 1 second and just speak directly to the one person. It might be more than one, but directly to the person who wants to be following a path, wants to do some of the things that you're doing, but maybe has some fears, some anxieties, some hesitations. Talk to that person and just tell them what they need to hear right now.
Oh my gosh. Fear. Fear's a really beautiful and intense and wild energy. You know, when I explore fear, I like to give it a voice. I like to have a conversation with my fear, and as if it was a friend sitting right next to me. Sometimes I'll put a pillow next to me, and I'll put a little monkey there. I'll say, "Hey there, fear. What are you trying to protect? Who are you trying to protect?" And I'll listen. I'll just sit and listen. And I'll ask the one that they're trying to protect. Because sometimes if I have a fear of something, that fear is coming up for good reason. You know, like there's something to lose. You know, there's something at stake. And I ask the one that thinks there's something at stake, you know, and the one that they're trying to protect, and I go, hey, you know, like, what's at stake here? And then I try and see if I can find the voice inside of myself that didn't know there was anything at stake, that didn't know there was anything to be afraid of. And I hang out and I see if I can have conversations with these parts of myself until I can listen to that one in me who just had the natural excitement, you know, that has the natural excitement. And I ask them, why are you excited? What does this nourish within you? What does this meet within you? And then I build that relationship. I build the relationship with the one in me who didn't know there was anything to be afraid of. And then I sit and counsel with those voices until I can hear from my true self what is going to support me in giving my deepest gift to the world. So if that sounds like you have a path inside of you, you have something to give, you have some music to give, and you have some fear, I would take them on a walk. I'd take them on a walk, and I'd see if you guys can find the one you're protecting and maybe jam out with them just for one song.
There you go.
Yeah, just one song.
And the monkey on the pillow is not going to hurt anybody. I like that too. Well, Marya, you've got so many cool projects going on. You have all of this cool music. You have this class coming out, as well as all of the other regular things that you do. So I am very excited to point people to all the stuff you're doing. I feel like there are just some of these conversations I've already had where I was looking at your stuff and I wanted to touch base on the ancestral bloodlines and the womb medicine. So I just think we're going to have to do a second one someday.
I'd be happy to. That'd be fun.
Well, that sounds good. Well, I love it. And I love all that you're doing. For Chris and for Marya, everybody remember, give more grace, share more love, and to make more music. All right. I hope you enjoyed that chat with Marya. I told you it was going to be interesting. So check out everything she's doing. Check out all the new music she's releasing, and check out the course that comes out this Sunday, May the 10th, on vocal core resonance. So if you want to get in touch with me, you can do that as always by emailing makemoremusicpodcast@gmail.com. I'd love it if you'd rate and review the show. That really makes a big difference. And tell somebody you know, anyone right now. We're bored. We're sitting at home. We're social distancing. Send it to somebody else who would like to hear this content. Finally, join us on Instagram at make.more.music. All right, everybody, give more grace, share more love, make more music.